In this video, I'm going to be painting up a battery of artillery for the British for Warlord game's Epic Battles Waterloo. I always like painting to a specific unit, so for this one, I'm going to be using the 5th Division's artillery foot batteries. You could use either one, either the British or the Hanovarian. Looking at my favorite uniform website, you'll notice that both units look exactly the same uniform-wise. And while painting this battery, I threw in Sir Thomas Picton, the Lieutenant General of the 5th Division. I started by priming everything white. You can use a rattle can, or in my case over here, I use an airbrush primer. You don't have to have full coverage, just make sure that there's primer on all the surfaces so that the following paints will stick to them. Let's start out with Barbarian Flesh Fanatic paints. I always like starting with the flesh tones first because the areas are really small, and if you're struggling to start a painting project, it is kind of nice to start with the minor colors like skin. You'll put it on every model and it just kind of primes your pumps, so to speak, for the rest of the colors that come afterwards. So the first color I put on is flesh, and I put it on all the exposed hands, all the exposed faces, on the artillerymen, as well as Mr. Sir Thomas Picton here. I next switched to olive drab fanatic paint, which is perfect for the gun carriages. Now this is another thing that you can do if you have a big project, is paint the big surfaces first. This will also kind of get you in the mood to paint the rest of the models. Now you have some colors on it, it will make it more motivating for you to paint all the rest of the colors. Now these gun carriages do have some spaces that are fairly tight. For instance, underneath the gun carriage, you want to make sure that you reach in with your brush and get those hidden areas as well. Now let's paint the guns themselves with some weapon bronze. This is going to go on the cannon. Generously lay down this acrylic color, and now you're ready for the next step. British artillerymen actually wore blue tunics. For this, use ultramarine blue fanatic paint. It's very important to use the fanatic paint. It has the right tint of color. Do not use the old war paints. Ultramarine blue, which is completely different color. I'll show you in the upper right hand corner in one of my videos. But what you want to do is just lay them down on all the tunics of the artillerymen. Now this blue color may throw you off a little bit. This is usually a color reserved for the French, but the British artillerymen in Waterloo did have blue tunics as part of the uniform. The collar and parts of the tunic of Sir Thomas Picton are also blue. His cuffs are blue as well, so I go ahead and paint all these areas with the same ultramarine blue that I had used on the artillerymen. For the Lieutenant General's tunic, he spots a more regular red coat, and for this I use pure red fanatic paint. I lay it down carefully on his tunic, making sure to not overpaint the areas that I had painted blue earlier. This same pure red color is going to go on the collars and the cuffs of all the artillerymen. If you notice on the uniform guide that I had shown earlier, this is what the uniforms were for either the British or the Hanoverian batteries. Besides the collars and the cuffs, you'll also want to put this on the epaulettes, which are on the shoulders. And if you want to designate any of your models as a lieutenant or a sergeant, you can go ahead and paint his sash red. That was a mark of office so that the other troops knew who was in charge. Next, I use uniform gray fanatic paint, and I laid this down on all the trousers of the artillerymen. This is also a color that I put on the sponge that is on the ramrod right here. I next use leather brown fanatic paint, and the first thing that I'm going to put it on is Sir Thomas Picton's horse. I'm going to make this a brown horse. So go ahead and use a large brush and then just generously lay it all over this horse. You don't have to be very careful around the mane or anything. If you do overpaint into those areas, you'll just paint over them later. I also use this brown on the ramrod that this one artilleryman is holding. There are multiple areas of this ramrod, so make sure to go around the model and pick out all the areas. And I also randomly put this brown color onto the hair of multiple crew members. For the others, I'll be painting other hair colors. I also use this brown for this bucket that this one crew member is carrying. And then the looking glass on the other crew member here is also going to get brown. Back to Sir Thomas Picton, I am going to go back to some of my old colors. Over here, I'm going to use ultramarine blue on the saddle cloth right here. And then after that, I'm going to use another color that I used earlier, which is uniform gray. I'm going to be using this gray color on his bedroll, and I'm also going to make the tail and the mane of Sir Thomas Picton's horse gray as well. I next use demonic yellow fanatic paint, and this is going to go on the braids on the tunics of the artillerymen. I basically paint a simple rectangle in yellow right where the braids would be on the tunic. When I apply washes later, this will all settle itself out. I also use this yellow color on the hair of some of the crew. I next switch to matte white fanatic paint, and this is going to go on Sir Thomas Picton. He has white hair, so I paint that white, and then I also make sure to make his pants nice and brilliant white. The sash around his waist also gets white. And then for the artillerymen, all their cross straps are going to get white. Now, as you can see, as I'm painting white, it goes over all the yellow rectangles that I made earlier, so only the braids that peek out on the sides will show, otherwise it will be covered by the white paint. I next use greedy gold fanatic paint. This is going to go on Sir Thomas Picton, namely on the hilt of his sword right here, and then on the tip of his scabbard here, and then on his epaulettes, left hand and right hand shoulders. I paint this gold line right down all his buttons here, and then also on the braids that are on his tunic here. This symbol on his hat also gets gold. I next switch to polished silver metallic fanatic paint, and I apply this onto his scabbard and also onto the stirrups on his feet. I now move to matte black fanatic paint, and this is going to go on the hairs of any of the remaining crewmen that I did not paint either yellow or brown. And then I paint the caps of all the crew members with this black color. They all get black caps. You'll want to be careful around the plumes. Those are already white. The plumes are white. So as you get close to the plumes, just slow down a little bit and make sure to not over paint into them. The shoes of the artillerymen are also black. Go ahead and paint those. If they overpaint a little bit onto the base, not a big deal. We're going to be flocking over those later on anyway, so you don't have to be terribly careful here. Just be careful of the trousers. You will also be using matte black on all the pouches and all the cartridge cases that you see on the hips of all the artillerymen. Go ahead and spin them around. Anything that looks like a pouch or a cartridge pack, go ahead and paint them black. As a final step, add a black dot to the end of the gun to create the muzzle. For Sir Thomas Picton, his bicorn hat is going to be black. So go ahead and paint that. Just be sure to keep the symbol in the middle of it gold. And then after that, you're going to move on to the brittles on the horse. These areas here are going to be painted black. Use a fairly accurate detailing brush for this because these are small features, but go ahead and paint them in the areas that I'm showing here. The Lieutenant General's shoes are black as well, so paint those black. Also note that this area around the tail here is part of the brittle system, so be sure to paint that black as well, like I'm showing. I next paint the border around the saddle cloth with demonic yellow. Now I'm going to go back to polished silver. I actually forgot the step earlier on when I was working on this color. You'll want to apply this onto the rims of all the gun carriage wheels. Some of the areas like over here are a little bit more obscure. Just be sure that you have enough paint on your brush and you should be able to just kind of blindly trace around them. I also apply silver to other areas of the gun carriage right here just to give them points of interest. Also revisiting with greedy gold metallic fanatic paints, I'm going to be putting this on all the plates on the hats right here. And then there are braids on the hats as well. Those get gold. Now it's time to put wash on everything. You'll want to apply about 70% or 80% of dark tone wash with 30 to 20% of water. You want to dilute it down a little bit and then just generously lay it onto the entire model. Sir Thomas Picton, on all the guns, on all the artillerymen. Just go ahead and douse all the models. This will create the necessary shading and contrast that you really need to make these models pop. After that, you're basically done. You'll want to use some green flocking and white Elmer's glue, and then just apply the glue onto the base, dunk the entire base into the flocking, and at that point, you are all set. After this, put some matte varnish on all your models to protect them, and at this point, you're all done. Here is a rotating view of one of the artillery pieces. And here is a rotating view of Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Picton of the 5th Division of the British Royal Army. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope this new battery of artillery will serve you well on the tabletop. Follow along for more Epic Battles Waterloo content, and until the next time, happy hobbying.